Groundbreaking therapies developed at Seattle Children's over the last decade have put us on the cusp of bringing life-changing treatments to more children. Immunotherapy treatment is changing the way we treat cancer, including childhood cancer, and Seattle Children's is helping to lead the way as we develop new cellular therapies. By using the body's own immune system, we're able to avoid the harsh side effects that often accompany chemotherapy and radiation. Doctors and researchers at Seattle Children are focusing on CAR T cell therapy. This is a process where we re-engineer the T cells to recognize the cancer cells as being bad. These CAR T cells are then able to go into the body to attack the cancer cells directly.
The summer of 2017, right after Jed had finished 8th grade, he was diagnosed with high-risk acute lymphoblastic leukemia, which is ALL, and he started treatment immediately. And that's heavy chemotherapy and steroids, and it's pretty horrible first month of treatment. And he had lots of complications, and it was hard. At the end of that, when they checked, I think one of the only things worse than hearing your kid has cancer is that your kid has treatment-resistant cancer, and that it hadn't worked. And we would have gone to the ends of the earth to save Jed. I mean, this is my boy right here. And thankfully we didn't have to. We live in the Pacific Northwest and we have Seattle Children's up the road. And we were able to get Jed into the CAR T immunotherapy trial. And CAR T is not without its risks, and it's a scary conversation to have with your son. But at this point, this CAR T was his only option. So that year, he was supposed to be starting 9th grade, September 1st. We drove past Stadium High School, where he's supposed to be starting, up to Seattle Children's for his apheresis.
Today we're here with 1-year-old Zoe as she starts the process to get CAR T cells. The first part of that process is a procedure called apheresis. What you can see with us here in the room is Zoe lying on the bed with her mom next to a large machine. That machine is taking blood from Zoe and spinning it around to isolate the T cells. Once the T cells are collected in a bag, the rest of the blood is given back to Zoe. This entire process takes about 3 or 4 hours. And as you can see, Zoe is being an excellent patient, and her mom and dad are doing a great job distracting her with toys. At the end of this procedure, we take the bag of T cells to the lab where they can be modified. So let's head to the lab now. We've now arrived at the Seattle Children's lab, where a patient's CAR T cells are manufactured. When you look around, you can tell that this is a very busy place. Over here to your right is the lab where the apheresis product initially arrives. Over here to your left is the clean room, where the CAR T cells are manufactured. The first step is to isolate the T cells from the apheresis bag. We then put them in culture with all the food and nutrients they need to grow and divide to make more T cells. During the period when the T cells are growing, we expose them to a new gene that encodes for a receptor. We refer to this receptor as a Velcro molecule because it's what enables the CAR T cell to target and attack the cancer cell. This whole process takes between 1 and 2 weeks. At the end, the T cells are frozen down until they're ready to give back to the patient. So let's now travel back to the hospital so we can see a CAR T cell infusion. Here we are, back at the hospital for CAR T cell infusion day. Over here is Emily and her family awaiting for her CAR T cells to be reinfused. What you can see over here is this large brown freezer. This is how the CAR T cells have made their way back to the hospital. The first step is to make the CAR T cells no longer frozen and bring them up to body temperature. This allows for the CAR T cells to be very happy at the time they're infused. Once the T cells have reached the temperature, we put them into the syringe to bring them over to the patient. Those cells are then infused directly into Emily's bloodstream. Once they're in her bloodstream, our hope is that they will scour her body, finding leukemia cells and gobbling them up.
His cells, once they were baked and ready and reinfused, we waited for a fever, which as a cancer mom, you never want a fever, except in this case, which means that your son or daughter is storming and that their T cells are doing what they're supposed to do. And it was hard, it was a really hard few days. But 21 days later, Jed was tested and didn't have cancer. And it was an absolute miracle to think that his own cells were able to do what medication couldn't do and could get him to remission. It was just a blessing. 10 years ago, this probably wouldn't be the case. I wouldn't be sitting here with my son. He wouldn't have made it. And it's hard to even think about, but he did. And he's gonna head to Stadium High School as a junior this fall. And I'm pretty excited about it for him. You know, it's the little things, like being able to go to school, being able to hang out with friends and play football and do the normal things that teenage boys do. And, you know, things that I might have taken for granted before that I don't anymore, because every, you know, time I see his face, I'm reminded that it's just a miracle that he's here with me.
Oh!
Are you excited?
Yeah, I'm excited, yet nervous, but I'll feel better when I'm able to see my friends from the past and be able to make new ones.